this is a subject that I need to address as a review to my longtime subscribers, but more of a preview to my new subscribers, because a lot of you seem very confused. You're just going to have to go back and watch the older videos, but I will explain. So many of you, when you read the Bible, which is those who I'm addressing right now, are those who have questions about the Bible and coming down on Freemasonry, which is fine. You have your right to have your opinions, but Freemasonry, as we know, venerates Orion and Taurus. I think we can all agree on that. They are basically an Egyptian rite. But you need to understand it's been hijacked. It used to be a pure teaching, but now it is under the control of the two ages that it preceded. When we move to the fixed cross, Freemasonry is the right hand of Christ. Aldebaran is the nail in the right hand of the Messiah. Regulus is the nail in the feet. And Antares is the nail in the left hand. And I saw a creature in heaven. He had the face of a man, Aquarius, the face of a lion, Leo, the face of an ox, Taurus, and the face of an eagle, Scorpio. This used to be an eagle. This is the Persian representation of Scorpio, and that is the fixed cross. Now, the God of the Old Testament, Ares, the god of fire, is not the God of this age, but it is manipulating this age, because Ares was an age of war, and war continues. So that is why we have, in the Vatican, you have the symbol of Libra, which are the angels. Alright, you have air signs in the Vatican, and that air sign does not belong to Aquarius. It belongs to the mutable cross. It is Mercury. It's the twins, the baby Mercury, Virgo. Okay? And that is the mutable cross. The air sign that we're dealing with now is Gemini. He is the prince of the power of the air. Gemini is the prince. Aquarius is the king. And Libra, being the most high, is the pope of air. You have 4 popes: earth, water, air, and fire on the cardinal cross. You have to be a cardinal to be a pope, right? Can't become a pope without being a cardinal. Nothing about the mutable cross is about kings or popes. They're adepts. It's mutable. We're all adepts in this age. That's why it's an age of grace. In the original teachings of Masonry, not Freemasonry, but the guild, the Builders Guild, are stone masons, the teaching was pure alchemy, and it's been distorted. But in Aries, you had the law. In Pisces, we have faith, or blind faith. You believe. Taurus is I am. Pisces is I believe, and Aquarius is I know. So in the age of I believe, we're adepts, we get grace. And grace is measured by how much you will be judged by how you judge others. Grace is measured on how much grace you give. We're taught this teaching in the New Testament. The Old Testament is predominantly about Taurus and Aries. The New Testament is about Pisces, and the red words are about Aquarius. Excuse me. And let me just say, a few of you've asked, because I've been talking about my health. No, I don't have coronavirus. I don't have the flu or sick like that of any kind. Actually, the issue I'm dealing with is my spleen. If I remember, I'll talk more about that at the end. So, Pisces being the age of grace has nothing to do with you reap what you sow. That belongs to Aquarius. Aquarius is the age of Saturn, that will be ruled by the higher self. Aquarius deals with astrology, alchemy, and karma. Alchemy has one law, and that's the law of equivalent exchange. You reap what you sow. To get something, you must give something of equal value. We live in a very chaotic age. A mutable age is always a very chaotic age, especially the end of it, as we move from water into air. You know, I've mentioned this before. It's like being the dolphin. You got to be the dolphin, and a dolphin is the default, is the heir to the throne. But you got to come out of the water into the air. You know, I think about when whales and dolphins, the two mammals of the sea, they beach themselves in big groups. Whales, dolphins, and that type, they'll all beach themselves. And then we drag them back in the water. And I don't think I experienced, so I know that actually you've experienced this too, we all have, that when the body dies in the water, the soul is trapped in the water. That's why we are in the bodies, is mostly water. That's to contain our soul. Now, to me, these creatures of the sea are beaching themselves in group because we are in a pattern of ascension. We're in a pattern of ascension, so they'll all come together. Something's happened and they're ready to ascend. But if they die in the water, they'll recycle in the water. Their soul will remain there until the water is no more, or until the sea gives up her dead. And to me, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to die as a group outside of the water so that they can ascend to heaven or the air sign, their soul beings. We are told, marine biology tells us a lot about how intelligent the dolphin is. And even things like the sharks, the great masters of prey in the oceans. And we're no different. In alchemy, and even in the Bible, when it's referred to waters, it tells you the waters are peoples. You know, the waters in Cancer are the waters in our family. This is Mama's house, the divine feminine. These are the people we're related to. The water in Scorpio are the waters that we choose in our life, the people we choose, our best friends, our lovers, people we tell secrets to and confide in, other than family, people we choose. But Pisces is about groupthink. That's why the church, sports, fraternities, and today with the identity crisis because of identity politics, we have several generations that don't have a clue who they are. They're looking to the TV, the radio, and society to tell them who they are. And they're in a major identity crisis. And it's groupthink. And it's also grace. So to me, as long as you don't judge others, there's no condemnation in this age. But the kingdom is now. So if you take up your cross and follow him, you've moved from grace. You move from the adept to become the master. And you become in the know, in the now. So now you are responsible. You're responsible for what you know. And when you're in the know and you're prepared to reap what you sow, then that's what measure you will be judged by. You can all walk in the kingdom now. Simply, and of course, we will be rejected in this age. Even as Christ said, I am in this world age, but not of it. No, Paul said that, in this world, but not of it. Christ said, my kingdom is not of this world age. If it were, my followers would fight. But that's why John the Baptist was the sacrifice for Pisces. That's why the Freemasons today carry around his head. Because in all actuality, the true veneration today is groupthink. Gemini, which has the Buddha teachings, he's Buddha. He's the other end is Zeus. Everything is about Jupiter and Mars. I mean Jupiter and Mercury. The Mars comes in on the Chi-Rho. I'm going to just keep doing this till you see it over and over and over. The mutable cross looks like this. That's this age. But the Chi-Rho has this. And it does this. And the reason it does this and not, it's showing you half the cardinal cross, right? It's only showing you one side of the cardinal cross. And that is the Aries-Libra axis. The masculine axis of the cardinal cross is superimposed over the top of the mutable cross. You do it in the correct way. It's done like this. Sometimes you'll see it, it'll show it as a curve, but that's just been feminized. It's still showing you the symbol of the mutable cross being controlled by the masculine axis, which is the Babylonian priesthood. Now what they did is Rome should have always been led by the Senate, but they had their religion moved from Jerusalem to Rome, and the Vatican became the supreme power. That is when evil took over the world. Groupthink by religion, because they control the knowledge. Always it has been the politicians, the governors, and the priest. The priest crowns the king. And then you have Mercury of this age, which is commerce, the bankers. So the priests really are the bankers. They do it because of the money. They control the wealth and the knowledge, and they control the media and knowledge, which is your mind, to govern the mind, government. And you're being governed by Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter, which are war, the church, and the banks. That's what really rules. Our kings today are false kings. The true kings have their crown chakra. And that's the difference. And the next two ages are one. So when I talk about what's going to go on in Aquarius, well, Aquarius and Capricorn are one age. They're both ruled by Saturn. It's heaven on earth. And so they're the same. And they're all ruled by one star. All that the Father has is given unto me. Both ages. World without end. World age without end, because it goes right into Capricorn. He's the Aleph and the Tau. In Arabic, all these stars are called the king stars. Here's your hidden serpent. The serpent is an ancient symbol for an air sign. Gemini's is hidden. We see it in the Shiva, right? You see it in the Shiva. It's in the angles. The two serpents, actually, just like the two snakes on the head of the Pharaoh, right? They took these two snakes into this age. And then you have the serpent on the pole. Again, a hidden serpent. But all the ancient zodiacs have this as Quetzalcoatl, feathered serpent. It's an eagle with the serpent in its claws. Or today, the symbol for the flag of Mexico, or Central America. The feathered serpent. The feathered serpent from Central and South America moved to Asia, the Orient, and became, in the age of Aries actually, and became the fire dragon, right? Same symbolism. You have the feathers, and he's the flying fire dragon. The feathers on the back represent Libra. The feathers on the feet represent Gemini, and the feathers on the head represent Aquarius. Like the Native American headdress, the chief wears the headdress that goes from his feet all the way around his head and right back down to his feet. That's your aura. He has his crown chakra, and he wears his aura. It looks just like the outline of the human aura around our body. It's the same as the Native American headdress. It's all in the symbolism. And alchemy is a language of symbols, but it's also the language of nature and the universe. And in our mind, everything in threes. Everything has three faces. Fire has three faces: that of a ram, that of a lion, and that of the centaur, the horseman. All of the, cowboy. This is so cowboy and Indian right here, right? Even now in our we actually have the Indian. His headdress should go to the floor. And the new flock, it's all in the imagery. Between the old and the new. The flying eagle is Altair. It's the upper house of Capricorn. The eagle with the serpent, the snake, is the Scorpio Libra constellation. And I've done that video for my new subs. The video is called Fiery Serpent on the Pole. And I take you back into the Old Testament about the wars going on about Libra. Libra's in the zodiac, Libra's out of the zodiac. They basically just dug a big hole here I call the bottomless pit. The books, the Libros, the books. But it's divided between tongues and languages and symbolism. Me, I just stumbled upon it, or it was given to me. It's not what I chose. I didn't choose to be an alchemist or an astrologer. Language was just an obsession with me. Communication was an obsession with me. I was born with Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury on the mutable cross, opposite his own side, in the house of ideology and philosophy. But I needed to know why. I understand. We can all figure out the who, what, where, when, and how. But it's the why. That's what's all I need to know why. And when I finally get alchemy, now I know why. Because it's all perfectly natural. It's perfectly natural. It is a circle of nature. And for humanity, mostly, for souls. to raise us to higher states of consciousness. To understand the light, we must know darkness. If you've never known darkness and all you've known is the light, then you have no understanding. You have no knowledge or wisdom. You just know darkness. But if all you know is light, then where we come from, all we do know is light. So to enter into the darkness of the body, into the depths of matter, I actually consider a privilege, because now I know. I'm in the know. I picked up my cross, and I'm now following the Master, and I'm in the know. Let's do this in my favorite. It's necessary that we look at both sides. Actually, there's more than one side, but in this duality, that's what we're given. I get another thing too about politics, and I keep telling you about the duality. That to the government will always give you two choices, because you have two sides of your brain. But that's when we need our own crowns. We don't need to be governed by an outside force. As we move into Aquarius, it's not going to, we're told you can have socialism or democracy. And both of those belong on the mutable cross. Democracy was given to us by the Greeks. The Greeks ruled during the age of Gemini. We have Thoth at one end, Thoth and Buddha, and on the other end, we have Zeus. And that's exactly what was going on in the world at that time on the mutable cross. And we were given those two concepts, and they're being played out now. We have all this repeat and repeat of this age of Peter, right? Because that's all they have. That's all they've got. Now, what we're going into is going to be a meritocracy. And that was always the teaching of the Stone Builders Guild, not Freemasonry. Freemasonry has been hijacked by the cardinal cross, the masculine axis, to suit itself in the age of Pisces. They're all imposters. None of them are heir to the throne, or dolphins, or Dauphin Dufont. None of them. But can be. We all can be. But in the next age, it's not going to matter if you're male or female, how old you are, what race you are, what gender you are, what your cultural status is, what your environmental status is, what anything. None of that's going to matter. The only thing that's going to matter is you earn it. You will reap what you sow. And again, if you take up your cross when you're told the kingdom is now, you just have to walk in it. Well, you can't walk in grace and karma at the same time. They're two different things. You can't serve the God of fire of the burning bush. You know, that God has many names. And this God of fire has three faces and many names. To the Persians, he was Ahura Mazda. To the Latins, he was Vulcan. To the Hebrew, he was the burning bush. I am that I am. To the Babylonians, he's Molech. Think about what I just said. And Jupiter and Mercury, who rule this age, Jupiter is all about empire. That's why they gave us Star Wars. This is the Star Wars, the story of the Star Wars. It's the story of the Valkyries. It's the story of the Lord of the Rings, where you lose the ring in the water and it's found at another age. Yeah, the ring is the zodiac. One ring to rule them all. And that's what they did. They gave us one ring to rule us all. But it's a corrupted ring. It's a false ring. It's not the wedding ring. It's the engagement ring, right? You don't marry into this age. You have to remain the virgin so you can marry the king or Prince Charming when he comes. So they're busy destroying all those stories that, Disney screwed us over more ways than one. They've misinterpreted the tales from the beginning and actually telling us the truth, because Disney started telling us about the age of Virgo and the damsel in distress, right? This Cinderella. This is Rapunzel. This is every story ever told about the damsel in distress. In the Bible, this is the woman with the alabaster box. And this is the Holy Grail here and the alabaster box, depending on who's telling the story. But yeah, Disney told, and Prince Charming, here's the prince. And I keep telling you, they just didn't finish the story. It's not happily ever after. The prince is a narcissistic drunk. It ends bad. He's a false king. This whole age is. This whole age is a lie. It's a wannabe. It's a pretend. They're pretenders. And they learn to pretend by these guys over here, the Babylonian priesthood, from the masculine axis of the cardinal cross. And they switched places with them. Fire and water have always been ruled before the flood, before the age of Cancer. Fire, Jupiter here, was ruled in Europe. And after the flood, its fire became Asia. Before the flood, Asia was water. After the flood, Asia became fire over here. Mars and Jupiter have always been the gods of Rome. They have no problem admitting to you who their gods are. But that is not the god of Aquarius, the god of the red words. If there's only one God, then why does the God of the Old Testament of fire tell you you should have first commandment? Thou shalt have no other God before me. He's a jealous God. Jealousy is emotion. Emotion is ruled by Mars, Aries. If you are an Aries, your ruling planet is Mars, and you're ruled by your emotions. It's harder for you to overcome than any of us, especially cardinal emotions, because this was supposed to be the priesthood, a purified Levitical priesthood. But instead, they became the warmongers. The control and the knowledge and the power was overwhelming to them. And they were so good at it because they're on the cardinal cross. They are grand masters. They are grand masters of war and religion. And they had no problem taking over the mutable cross. They just moved from Jerusalem, set up shop in Rome, and called it the Vatican, and literally took over the Roman culture because they were the scribes. These are the scribes that scribbled the scripture from Taurus, the scripture of Egypt, the scripture of the fixed cross, and they scribbled it so that we would never see the truth. And you have to see the truth, because this age is fishtails. It's all about lies and exaggeration and imposter. It's a show. It's like a rehearsal. You have the wedding rehearsal and then the real wedding. This is not the real thing. This is the Antichristos. Instead of, vicar of, becomes, this is preceding. You can't buy into this age of grace. As good as grace sounds, and grace abounds, that all those sound awesome for this age. But the lesson is to see where that gets you. See where grace gets you. That's why the good guy never wins. Because if you're good, you don't need grace. Grace is only allotted to the bad guy. But they don't tell you that. They shame you, they guilt you, they tell you you are unworthy from your birth, in your blood. You're just born that way. No, you're not. No, you're not. That's a lie from the Babylonian priesthood over here. Because we're adepts being manipulated by a grand master. But once you're in the know and you walk in Aquarius, then you're no longer under the power of that lie. Once you know how the magician gets the rabbit in the hat and out of the hat, the trick don't work anymore. But then you have to take on the responsibility of, you are responsible for what you know. You reap what you sow. And you need to store up your treasures in heaven, air. Store up your treasures in your higher self, your crown chakra. When the Christ was persecuted, he opened not his mouth. And the next stage is going to be total meritocracy. And they're trying to present it to us in such a way that we reject it. That's why everything is privileged right now. You have privileged status. They're pushing the grace to the extreme. To the extreme. The most base, low, animalistic nature in man, the lower chakras. Instead of depending on intuition, the crown chakra, they want you to depend on instinct, fight or flight, emotion. It's all about your emotions, right? And we call them the emo generation, and it was the that they are manipulating. This is their target, is this generation, born with Pluto in Scorpio. The emo, what we call the emo generations. And then the entitled generations of Libra, and actually all three of these. The ones with Pluto and Sagittarius, they're going to be very ideological, and they're a lot more conservative than the previous generation. They're going to be totally opposite, actually. I think a lot of you already see it in your families, to where your older children are very liberal, but your younger children or your grandchildren that are being born now, in the past 10 years, maybe a little longer, are very, very conservative. But this generation ideology is being pushed onto them. Because the generation of Pluto and Virgo, this is the ideology that they link with. The ones born here are going to link with here. But these have been shut up. They're not allowed to say anything. And instead, this generation has been given the voice. The voice. That's what all of that's about. And look who they're giving the voice to. And I mean that in every way you possibly can think of. Yes, yes, and yes to your questions. Pluto in Virgo kicks in on the 2020 conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter this year in Capricorn on the Cardinal Cross. Begins. The next 20 years will be based on the collective subconscious of those born with Pluto in Virgo, not the voice of those born with Pluto in Libra or Scorpio. No matter how much they scream, the circle don't work that way, but it does work on symbolism, not the voice and language. Voice and language don't matter. This is about symbolism and emotion, and they are perverting both. That's why it's really important that you get your symbolism together. And as the God of the Old Testament said, thou shalt have no graven images of anything in heaven, air, or earth, because it's two ages of the battle of fire and ice, fire and water. I'm just going to keep doing it. Fire, water, fire, water. But the next age in like turn, you think that you would say, there shall be no graven images of anything of fire and water. But it's not going to be like that. We're not going to do to the other elements when your Mars and Jupiter, these two ages, are ruled by the lowest chakras, emotion and desire, expansion, more, 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 more. More war, more money, more land, more space, more power, more. But the next age is going to be about contraction. Less is more. No groupthink. Individuality. Meritocracy. You earn it. You're not born into it. No bloodline's going to matter. No amount of tall tales and lies will matter. You literally will reap what you sow. In every way. But there, most certainly in the next stage, water and fire symbols will be allowed, because there'll be no fear of them. Because when Jupiter and Mars come under the control of Saturn, Jupiter is debilitated in Saturn's house, and Mars is exalted. Because Mars now in Aries, he is war. In Scorpio, he is make love, not war, right? He plays the different game. He's the hero. But in Capricorn, he's the worker. He gets it done. He takes his emotions and transfers it into productivity to make the earth cardinal, apex, the most high of the earth, pope of the earth. Right now, we got a Pope of Water, which is the white Pope, Pisces. We got a Pope of Virgo, Earth, which is mutable Earth. That is the black Pope, right? They both are housed in the Vatican. The Vatican is the feminine axis of the mutable cross. And then we have Buddha over here in China, in Tibet. And his colors are red, Gemini, Mercury, and yellow, Sagittarius, Jupiter. Both axes are ruled by Jupiter and Mercury. The Vatican's axis is feminine. The Tibetan axis is the patriarch. And they are switching places, gender-wise. Peter dies upside down. So the powers of Tibet and the powers of the Vatican are going to swap places. They're going to transgender to where the Vatican's going to become yellow. It already is underneath red and yellow, and Tibet will take on the black and white. They're flipping all the imagery. This is what's happening. And you know, Mercury rules commerce, not necessarily money, but trade. And that's why we have trade wars. All this has to come down. If you people think that voting Democrat or Socialist is going to, one way or the other, is going to solve our problem, it will not. Because we're moving into a meritocracy. All of this mutable cross has to go. And that includes grace. And that's why you need to bank karma. Because it's coming. It could happen in the twinkling of an eye. All we need is a nice earthquake to kick us over a couple of degrees. We got one in 2012 when the tsunami hit. It shifted the earth by 1 degree. That's 72 years. We jumped into the future 72 years. And you want to know why the world looks strange and we're having a Mandela effect. We jumped into the world 72 years. And that's how fast things can change. In the twinkling of an eye. And I get a lot of Christians harping on me. I'm telling you, you were told to take up your cross and follow him daily. You were told that if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. But if thine eye is dark, woe, how great the darkness. You have to have a light in your mind. Most people have a light in their pants. They're emotionally driven. Mars, that's why you call it the emo generation, right here. Pluto, right here. And it's all done subconsciously. They're the grand masters over here from Aries, the Babylonian priesthood, freaking scribbling ass scribes. They're really smart. They mastered it. They grand mastered it. They're grand poobahs. And they're really ruling the whole thing. And they're really the yellow and red Babylonian priesthood. Everything comes from the Orient. It's the Middle East is Middle Eastern Asia, or the Middle East Orient. You go to the Oriental to get orientated. It's origin. It's source. Right there. They even tell you. The only way to overcome is to come on over. Take up your cross and follow him. Pause this for a second. The god of Pisces, Jupiter, is the god of grace. His name is Yahweh. Yep, he's Jehovah. That's Jupiter. He's Iupiter, Peter the Jew, Jew Peter. The Pope is in St. Peter's Basilica. He sits in the seat of St. Peter, Jupiter. And he is the God of grace. But the God of grace says that for you to get that grace, for you to be forgiven, you have to forgive. Now, I say that to forgive, to be forgiven, you must forgive. By what measure you judge, by what measure you forgive, is by what measure you'll be forgiven. And all that sounds fine and dandy, don't it? But understand the depths of that. You know, those people in the pews that are actually in the head of Leviathan over here. These are people in the pews. Right there, that's the sheepfold that's driving this whole thing for 2 ages, the Leviathan. It is the people in the pews. And, you know, the priesthood, which is actually the Babylonian priesthood sitting there, they're not Christians. They're not even Pisceans. They're Babylonians. And their god is more Mars than Jupiter, but they'll worship both. So they have no problem dishing that out, because for you to get forgiveness of your sin, that they brought that sin from the age of Aries over here and dumped it on you, then you have to forgive them for every crooked, evil, vile, disgusting, inhumane thing they've ever done. All the Hitlers, all the murderous religious wars and popes and kings. For you to be forgiven, you must forgive them. You know, and I hear a lot of Christians say, I'm not forgiving them. They're going to hell. You're judging them. When you judge them, that's what measure you will be judged by. Get off the mutable cross. We've all been double crossed. Pick up your cross, whether it's mutable, fixed, or cardinal, and follow him, Fomalhaut, the master. I'm cardinal. I take up my cardinal cross and I follow the master. I'm a grand master, but I follow the master. Because that's how it's done. You become your own king. You're going to get what you earn. And that's what we want. That's what we've always wanted. But we've been manipulated, and we're told pieces of Taurus, and pieces of Aries, and pieces of Pisces, and pieces of Aquarius, and we're told they're all one thing. All one God, one devil. No, 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 no. That is the lie. The duality is the lie. There are realities. You have reality, duality, but the realities are without number. Everybody lives in his own head. Everybody is generating a different reality here based on their perspective. The well bucket. This is where my Venus and Moon are. Right out of the well. This is the water of life. It is also the blood that flows from the side, where the king on the cross is pierced in the side and the blood flows, and it flows all the way down here into the Holy Grail, the great cup. Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. The balance that don't exist, the serpent that don't exist. The archer. This is the phony king's arch. Right, he's the fake king, the fake god, Jupiter. Jupiter is the emperor in Star Wars. The Jedi are the stars in Capricorn. All right, we're getting to almost an hour here. I think I've answered most of your questions, or addressed your comments, rather. Accusations and insults. That's okay, though. I used to be there, too. I had the exact same issues. But once I learned alchemy and see the zodiac as an alchemical magic circle of nature, and understand that all of this is purely natural, but it's so much easier for us. if we understand the who, what, when, where, how, and especially the why. And the why of it is all so that we can get our crown chakras and be connected back to source, so that we can bring earth back to its apex or cardinal earth state from before the fall. Alright people, love y'all bunches. You know, I haven't said it in a while, but if this channel's helped you, then please consider making a donation or becoming a sponsor. I'm not even going to jinx it. I'm not going to say it till it's a done deal. Alright, y'all know what to do. Be the best you can be. Bank the karma. Be what you want to be. Decide which world you're fixing to live in. This one of blind faith and grace, or are you ready to walk in the know? Because once you know, you can't unknow. You can't go back to grace. You can't remain under the law. You have to move yourself to the one law, the law of equivalent exchange. Your choice which world you want to live in. And like I said, the lake of fire is Sagittarius. Lake is a word that designates mutable. It's liquid state, solid, liquid, solid, gas, mutable, fixed, cardinal. So anything liquid, that word alone, lake of fire, it's mutable fire. And those who cannot make it from this age, they will not get to experience world without end. They'll have to wait till the next age of liquid fire arrives. So we are told in Revelation.